All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the 49ers. We're going to talk about what Kyle Shanahan had to say recently on Christian McCaffrey and what the 49ers could do in the draft. So, Christian McCaffrey, of course, did not really play that much last year, was dealing with the Achilles tendonitis. And, he did come back, played a little bit, but then ended up getting hurt against the Bills, but didn't have to get surgery. Now, Kyle Shanahan said last week via NBC Sports Bay Area that he's healthy, meaning McCaffrey. McCaffrey's healthy. He's doing great. Now, that's all well and good, but we got to see that when they take the field this upcoming season. He also said, you always hope to address it every year. This is talking about the running back position. Of course, we're set with McCaffrey, but every single year we've gone through this except for 2 years. We've gone through 4 running backs. Most teams do, so you always got to be prepared. Now, a couple guys that they let go or traded. Elijah Mitchell is now with the Chiefs, and also they traded Jordan Mason to the Vikings. But they still have Isaac Guerendo, and they also have Patrick Taylor, who played a little bit last year as well. But the running back position is definitely something that you could see the 49ers address in the draft. And I think it's very important that they do that because, again, he may say Christian McCaffrey is healthy, but until we see him, suit up and take the field next year, we have no idea. We have no idea. And McCaffrey, even before he got to San Francisco, was dealing with injuries. Now, once he got to the 49ers, he stayed relatively healthy. It's really last year where it's just, well, not only him, but the entire team was dealing with injuries. And, you had Jordan Mason in the beginning of the year, and he was running the football effectively, but then he got hurt, and then you had Isaac Guerendo running the football at times, and then he also got hurt. And Elijah Mitchell was hurt before the year even started. He didn't play at all last year. So it's just the 49ers dealt with a lot of injuries to the team, to the running back room in general. And, yeah, you got to hope that you have a good backup plan in case McCaffrey is not 100% next year. And, we talked about the running back class. This is a very deep running back class. So the 49ers, that could be a position that they address at some point. Maybe not necessarily in the first round, but, second or third round or the fourth round or whatever. It's going to be interesting what the 49ers do in the draft. Because they let some guys go on defense. They lost a backup tackle to Trent Williams to the Chiefs. So offensive line maybe. I mean, I could see them. Honestly, I feel like their first pick could be secondary. I don't know. Because you lost Hufanga, Charvarius Ward left. Or linebacker maybe. Because Dre Greenlaw is no longer there. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting what they do. But yeah, running back is a position they should address. The defense, I think, is going to get a ton of attention in this draft as well. They need to revamp that defense. And like I said, offensive line. Because I think you're pretty much set at receiver. You could bring in someone for depth. But, you got if Brandon Ayuk is healthy, you have him, Ricky Pearsall, and Juwan Jennings. That's your main 3. And then you got George Kittle at tight end. So, yeah, it's going to be weird not seeing Deebo Samuel on the field next year for the Niners. But that's where we're at. So, yeah, I mean, the 49ers were a disappointing team last year. I mean, this was a team that I had, as the number 1 seed again because, they've been consistent the last couple of years, and it's just injuries really affected this team. That was the main cause of why they didn't make the playoffs. If you had a fully healthy 49ers team, I think, you would have saw different results. Because they lost a lot of close games last year. And in their division, they lose tight games to the Rams, the Seahawks, the Cardinals. You flip those games, and all of a sudden, you could be a playoff team. And it's just, and then you had that rough stretch, that 2-game stretch between the Packers and the Bills. It was ugly. It was an ugly year, and they hope to put that in their rearview mirror and, turn the page and get back to how they were the previous 2 years. But it's going to be tough, though, because, the Rams, they're not going anywhere. They got Devontae Adams now. Matthew Stafford is, back. He's on a new deal. And the Cardinals, they swept the 49ers last year. Now, the last game, they sat Purdy, but, Cardinals won that game. And then, Seattle, they won one game. So, yeah, the 49ers have to, 49ers, like I said, forget about last year, throw that out the window, focus on this year, and hope things turn around. But, look, Christian McCaffrey is a very important player. He's very important to what the 49ers do. And hopefully he could stay healthy. But, you do worry. You do worry about McCaffrey because, again, has an injury history, was injured last year, and getting older. It's not like the injuries are going to slow down. So, and we've talked about this before and on the football podcast. They want to monitor his workload. I don't think, maybe you do from time to time, but they are definitely going to give McCaffrey a break at times. As they should. You want to preserve him. Because, the last thing you want is to run him into the ground and then, he gets hurt again. But also, you could take as much precautions as you want. Football's a violent sport. He could still get hurt. So, yeah, I do agree with, if they monitor his workload, but still. Even if you do that, he could still end up getting hurt. So, but he is a great player. That was a great trade that the Niners made. It's just unfortunately that, the last couple of years, they made it far. It's just they come up short. I really do wonder. The Eagles probably still win, but what happens if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt in that championship game? How does that go? And the Super Bowl, you had a 10-point lead. And you lost it. They have come so close. And now it's kind of like what happened, between the 2019 and the 2020 season where you got to the Super Bowl, you had a 10-point lead, you lose to Patrick Mahomes, and then you don't make the playoffs the following year because you're ravaged by injuries. But now, this is where things come back because, 2021, I don't think anybody was really high on the 49ers. I think people thought the 49ers were good, but I don't think people expected the 49ers to go all the way to the championship game. And that's what they did. They went on the road. They beat Dallas. They beat the Packers. They had a chance to beat the Rams, but they let the Rams come back and win that game. So they made it to 3 straight NFC championship games. And, I feel like going into this year, it's different because they lost so many guys, and everyone's like, wow, they got rid of everybody. They didn't really get rid of everybody. Drain Greenlaw was coming off of a significant injury. Deebo Samuel had a down year. Ufanga was hurt. They were expendable to the Niners. So, now it's up to the Niners, who are a very good organization. They're going to go out there and try to replace all this talent. But you still have a lot of the core guys there. So, I think the 49ers will bounce back next year. When it comes to the division, I got to see what happens in the draft, but I still like the Rams. I still like the Rams right now, but that doesn't mean the 49ers can't turn it around. Because the Seahawks, they brought in Sam Darnold. We'll see how that all pans out. And then the Cardinals, the Cardinals are a team that always starts off fast, for the most part, starts off fast with Kyler Murray, and then they slow down at the end of the year. But we'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the 49ers and their possible approach to the draft with, maybe taking a running back, which, again, I'm for that. I think they should. It's a deep class, and you got a running back that's getting older and, could get hurt again. So you want to have that insurance policy. And, especially when you traded Jordan Mason. And, again, Isaac Orendo showed you something last year, but I think you need somebody else in that room. So, yeah, we are going to take our next break. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little baseball. We will talk about the Yankees. The Yankees have lost 3 straight. Is it time to panic? Is it time to panic? There's a very easy answer to that, but there are concerns that I do have with the team. And we will talk about those concerns and if they could be corrected when we come back. They play in a couple of hours. Can't wait for this Detroit series to be over. It's been bad. It's been bad. There's no other way to put it. It has not been a good series for the Yankees in Detroit. And yeah, we will get into all that when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.